How Millionaire is shocked to see Black Beggar feeding twin girls with 3 SUVs. Richard Sterling, Mr. Wall Street himself, the guy with a bank account bigger than some small countries, was staring out the tinted window of his town car. Queens wasn't exactly his usual haunt. He was on his way to a charity thing, a necessary evil when you're swimming in cash. Then he saw it. 3 freaking Cadillac Escalades parked all cattywampus near a soup kitchen. Okay, weird, but then he squinted. Standing in line were 2 little girls. Twins. Lily and Rose. His Lily and Rose. The ones that vanished 5 years ago. The ones he'd given up ever seeing again. They were thinner, dirtier. But those eyes, those were his girls. And feeding them, ladling stew into their bowls like she was their grandma, was a black woman, older than time itself, with eyes that could see right through you. Mama Clara, the locals called her. But hold on, a black sedan just screeched to a halt, blocking the sidewalk. A figure in a wide-brimmed hat, like they were auditioning for a movie, jumped out. The hat hid their face. But Richard could see the glint of something metallic in their hand. Mama Clara stiffened. Her eyes narrowed on the figure. She whispered something to Lily and Rose, and they clung to her skirts like their lives depended on it. Terror. Pure, unadulterated terror in their eyes as they looked at the stranger. Who was this mystery person? What did they want with Mama Clara and the twins? And why were Lily and Rose so damn scared? Antes de continuarmos con essa história incrível, preciso te fazer o alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você está aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários de qual cidade você está assistindo. Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. He squinted. Standing in line were 2 little girls, twins, Lily and Rose. His Lily and Rose, the ones that vanished 5 years ago, the ones he'd given up ever seeing again. They were thinner, dirtier, but those eyes, those were his girls. And feeding them, ladling stew into their bowls like she was their grandma, was a black woman, older than time itself, with eyes that could see right through you. Mama Clara, the locals called her. But hold on, a black sedan just screeched to a halt, blocking the sidewalk. A figure in a wide-brimmed hat, like they were auditioning for a movie, jumped out. The hat hid their face, but Richard could see the glint of something metallic in their hand. Mama Clara stiffened. Her eyes narrowed on the figure. She whispered something to Lily and Rose, and they clung to her skirts like their lives depended on it. Terror, pure, unadulterated terror in their eyes as they looked at the stranger. Who was this mystery person? What did they want with Mama Clara and the twins? And why were Lily and Rose so damn scared? Richard felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. This wasn't just a soup kitchen visit. This was something else entirely. He hammered on the partition, barking at his driver, "Pull over. Now!" The driver, startled, slammed on the brakes. Richard practically leaped out of the car, ignoring the honking horns and the angry shouts. He had to get to his girls. He pushed through the small crowd that had gathered, drawn by the commotion. The figure in the hat was getting closer. To Mama Clara, the metallic glint now clearly a gun. Richard's heart hammered against his ribs. "Hey! What the hell do you think you're doing?" Richard yelled, his voice cracking with fear and adrenaline. The figure in the hat didn't even flinch. They just raised the gun. Mama Clara shoved Lily and Rose behind her, her eyes blazing. "You leave them alone, you hear me? You leave my babies alone!" Then it happened. Faster than Richard could process, the figure pulled the trigger. But the bullet didn't hit Mama Clara. Instead, with a sickening thud, it hit Lily, right in the chest. Rose screamed, a sound that tore through Richard's soul. Mama Clara gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. The figure in the hat didn't hesitate. They fired again. This time, the bullet found Rose. Richard stood frozen, the world tilting on its axis. His girls, his Lily and Rose, lying on the dirty sidewalk, blood blooming on their little dresses. He finally found his legs, stumbling forward, a primal scream building in his throat. But before he could reach them, the figure in the hat pulled it off. And Richard Sterling, Mr. Wall Street, the guy who thought he'd seen it all, nearly collapsed. Standing there, gun still smoking, was Emily, his wife, his Emily, the mother of Lily and Rose. "They were a mistake," she said, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "A very expensive mistake." Richard stared at her, unable to comprehend. The woman he loved, the woman he thought was grieving their lost daughters, had just murdered them. He wanted to scream, to rage, to tear her apart, but he couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then Emily did something even more shocking. She turned the gun on herself. A final gunshot rang out, echoing through the Queen streets. Emily crumpled to the ground, joining Lily and Rose in a bloody heap. Mama Clara let out a wail that could curdle milk. Richard just stood there, numb, staring at the carnage. But then, Mama Clara did something that snapped him out of his stupor. She looked directly at him, her eyes filled with a knowledge that chilled him to the bone. "They weren't your daughters, Richard," she whispered, her voice hoarse with grief and something else, something dark. "They were hers." Richard's knees buckled. What the hell was she talking about? If they weren't his, then whose were they? And why would Emily kill her own children? What secrets had been buried all these years? Secrets so dark they could drive a mother to murder? Richard's knees buckled. What the hell was she talking about? If they weren't his, then whose were they? And why would Emily kill her own children? What secrets had been buried all these years? Secrets so dark they could drive a mother to murder. He stared at Mama Clara, pleading for answers, for some kind of explanation that made any damn sense at all. But Mama Clara just shook her head sadly, her eyes filled with pity and something else, fear. "Some things are better left buried, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Some truths can destroy a man." Destroy a man? What truth could be? Worse than seeing your daughters gunned down in cold blood by their own mother? He stumbled towards Emily's body, lying twisted and broken on the sidewalk. He reached out, his hand trembling, and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. He'd loved this woman. He'd built a life with her. He thought he knew her, but now he realized he knew nothing. And then he saw it, a small, almost invisible scar just behind her ear. He'd seen it before, years ago, when they were first dating. He'd asked her about it, and she'd laughed it off, saying it was from a childhood accident. But now, staring at it in the harsh light of day, he remembered something else. Something he'd completely forgotten. A news report. Years ago. A story about a mental institution escape. A woman, a patient, with a history of violence and a disturbing obsession with having children. The woman had never been found. The woman had a distinctive scar behind her ear. Richard's blood ran cold. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking so badly he could barely type. He searched for the old news article, his heart pounding in his chest, and then he found it, a grainy photograph of the escaped patient. And it hit him like a punch to the gut. It wasn't Emily, not the Emily he knew. This woman was an imposter, someone who had taken Emily's place. Someone who had been living a lie for years. But if that was true, then where was the real Emily? And who the hell was he married to all this time? He looked back at the bodies on the ground. 2 little girls, and a woman who wasn't who he thought she was. A wave of nausea washed over him. He felt like he was drowning in a sea of lies and deceit. Suddenly, Mama Clara grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "We gotta go," she said urgently. "Now, before they come back." Who's coming back?" Richard asked, his voice hoarse with fear. Mama Clara didn't answer. She just looked at him, her eyes wide with terror. "Just trust me," she said. "We need to disappear, both of us." And then, just as sirens started wailing in the distance, Mama Clara did something that shocked him even more than everything else that had happened. She pulled out a gun, a big silver revolver, and she pointed it not at him, but at the approaching police cars. "You comin' or not, Mr. Sterling?" she said, her voice hard and determined. "Because I ain't going down alone." Richard stared at her, completely bewildered. He didn't know what was happening anymore. He didn't know who to trust. He didn't know what to believe. But one thing was for sure. His life would never be the same again. And as he looked into Mama Clara's eyes, he knew he had a choice to make. Trust a woman he barely knew, a woman who seemed to know more than she was letting on, and run. Or stay and face the music, and risk everything. He had a gut feeling. Running was his only option. "Let's go," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Mama Clara nodded, a grim smile on her face. She grabbed his hand, and together they disappeared into the crowd, leaving the chaos and the carnage behind them. But as they ran, Richard couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that the real nightmare was just about to start, and he had no idea what was waiting for him in the shadows. He had no idea what Mama Clara really wanted. "Let's go," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Mama Clara nodded, a grim smile on her face. She grabbed his hand, and together they disappeared into the crowd, leaving the chaos and the carnage behind them. But as they ran, Richard couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that the real nightmare was just about to start, and he had no idea what was waiting for him in the shadows. He had no idea what Mama Clara really wanted. They weaved through the back alleys of Queens, Mama Clara pulling him along like he was a rag doll. He was vaguely aware of people staring, muttering, but his mind was a total blank. Just one thought hammered in his head: run, run, run. They finally stopped in front of a beat-up brownstone. Mama Clara fished a key from her pocket and shoved it into the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit hallway that smelled like mothballs and stale cigarettes. "In here," she rasped, pushing him inside. The apartment was tiny, crammed with mismatched furniture and stacks of newspapers. It looked like nobody had cleaned it in years. Mama Clara locked the door behind them, then turned to him, her eyes searching his. "All right, Mr. Sterling," she said, her voice suddenly firm. "Time for some answers. And you talking about? I'm the one who needs answers. My wife just murdered 2 little girls and then killed herself. What the hell is going on?" Mama Clara sighed, her face etched with weariness. "I know more than I let on. But some things you gotta figure out yourself. But first, tell me about Emily. Everything." He hesitated. Where to even begin? He told her about their life, their marriage, the disappearance of Lily and Rose, Emily's grief, everything he thought he knew. Mama Clara listened, her face unreadable. When he was finished, she nodded slowly. "And you never suspected anything? Never noticed anything off?" Richard thought hard. There were little things, quirks, moments where Emily seemed distant. But he'd always chalked it up to stress, grief. He shook his head. "No, nothing concrete." Mama Clara stared at him. "All right, Mr. Sterling. Time for the truth." She walked over to a dusty bookshelf and pulled out a photo album. She flipped through it, stopping at a picture of a young woman. "This," she said, pointing to the picture, "is the real Emily." Richard frowned. The woman in the picture looked vaguely familiar. "But I don't understand. That's not my Emily." Mama Clara chuckled, a dry, bitter sound. "No, honey, it ain't. Your Emily died a long time ago. This woman, she escaped from that mental institution years ago. She saw her chance, and she took it." He shook his head, denial rising in his throat. "No, that's impossible. Emily she was a damn good actress," Mama Clara finished for him. "She fooled you, didn't she? Fooled everyone." He stared at the photo, his mind racing. It couldn't be true, but the scar, the news report, it all fit. But if this was true, then who was the woman he'd loved? The woman he'd shared his life with? Suddenly, Mama Clara grabbed his arm, her grip tight. "We gotta go. They know we're here." "Who knows? What are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice rising. Before Mama Clara could answer, the door burst open. 2 men in dark suits stormed in, guns drawn. "Freeze! Don't move!" one of them shouted. Richard froze, his heart pounding. He looked at Mama Clara, his eyes pleading for answers. But she just stared at the men, her face pale with fear. Then one of the men spoke, his voice cold and hard. "We know who you are, Clara, and we know what you did." He stepped forward, pointing his gun directly at her. "It's time to pay the price." Richard watched, paralyzed with fear, as the man pulled the trigger. But the bullet didn't hit Mama Clara. It hit Richard. He gasped, clutching his chest. The world swam before his eyes. He stumbled, collapsing to the floor. As darkness closed in, he heard Mama Clara scream. But then he heard something else, something that chilled him to the bone. "Don't kill her," a voice shouted. "She's one of us." One of us. What the hell did that mean? And who was that voice? Then everything went black. I woke up coughing. My chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. The air smelled like burnt popcorn and something metallic. I tried to move, but my body screamed in protest. "Easy, cowboy," a voice said. "You took one hell of a bullet." My vision swam into focus. Mama Clara was there, kneeling beside me, her face a mask of worry. But something was different. She wasn't in that dingy apartment anymore. We were in a hospital? "Where are we?" I croaked. "Safe house," she said, her voice low. "For now." I tried to sit up again, but she gently pushed me back down. "Stay still. You need to heal." Heal? After everything that had happened? The girls, Emily. Her face hardened. "Don't worry about them right now. Worry about staying alive." Then I remembered. The men in suits. The voice saying, "She's one of us." What the hell did that mean? "Clara," I said, my voice trembling. "What's going on? Who are you? What are you involved in?" She sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair. "It's complicated, Richard. More complicated than you can imagine." Complicated? My wife was a freaking imposter who murdered 2 innocent girls. I deserve some damn answers. She winced. I know, and you'll get them, but not all at once. It's too much to take in." I glared at her. "Try me." She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Okay, you remember those men? The ones who shot you?" I nodded, my muscles tense. "They work for let's just say, a shadow organization. They control a lot of things, Richard. More than you know. They're the ones who set everything up." "Set what up? Emily? The girls?" She nodded. Emily, or rather, she, was one of their operatives. A highly trained one. They needed someone to infiltrate your life. Someone to get close to you. They chose her. I felt like I was going to be sick. My entire life. A carefully constructed lie. But why? What did they want from me? "Why me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What did they want? Mama Clara looked at me, her eyes filled with pity. "Ah, that's the thing, Richard. They didn't want you." My blood ran cold. "Then who—" She paused, then dropped the bomb. "They wanted your father." "My father? But he'd been dead for years." "That's impossible. He died when I was a kid." Mama Clara shook her head. "He faked his death, Richard. He went into hiding. He knew they were after him." "Who's they? And why?" "It doesn't matter right now," she said, cutting me off. "What matters is that they thought your father would eventually contact you. They thought you were the key to finding him." I stared at her, speechless. My father? A fugitive? My entire life turned upside down in a matter of hours. This was insane. But Emily is dead," I stammered. "They failed. So why are they still after me?" Mama Clara's gaze hardened. "Because you know too much now, Mr. Sterling. And because they still need you." "Need me for what?" She leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. To finish what Emily started, your father left something behind, Richard. Something they desperately want. And they think you know where it is. My head was spinning. What something? I had no idea what she was talking about. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A loud bang echoed from down the hall. Mama Clara jumped to her feet, pulling out a gun from under her coat. "They're here," she hissed. "We gotta move." I tried to get up, but my chest exploded with pain. "I can't." She looked at me, her face a mixture of fear and determination. "Yes, you can. You have to. Your father's life, and mine, depends on it." She grabbed my arm and yanked me to my feet. I stumbled, my vision blurring. But I forced myself to move, driven by a primal instinct to survive. As we stumbled towards the back exit, I couldn't help but wonder. What had my father gotten himself into? And what kind of legacy had he left behind? Then, Mama Clara did something that made my blood run even colder. She turned to me, her eyes blazing with a terrifying resolve. "Richard," she said, her voice hard and unwavering, "there's something else you need to know. Something I've been hiding from you to protect you, Richard. I'm trying to protect him too, because your father is still alive. I'm not just trying to protect you, Richard. I'm trying to protect him too, because your father is still alive." My brain short-circuited. My father? Alive? After all these years? It was too much. Just too damn much. But that's impossible. I saw him. I saw his coffin. There was a funeral, I sputtered, the words tripping over each other. Mama Clara just shook her head, her eyes filled with a sadness that cut deeper than any bullet wound. "That wasn't him, Richard. It was a setup. He had to disappear, for his own safety, and for yours." "But why didn't he tell me? Why did he leave me?" The questions poured out of me, a torrent of pain and confusion. "He couldn't, Richard. It was too dangerous. He knew they were watching you, waiting for him to make a move." "And you knew all along?" She nodded, her face etched with guilt. "I've been protecting him for years. It's a long story." We had to keep moving, but a wave of dizziness washed over me. I couldn't process. The man I'd mourned my whole life, still alive. Then, the final piece of the puzzle slammed into place. "Wait a minute. The girls, Lily and Rose, were they?" Mama Clara hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Yes, Richard. They were his." My world tilted on its axis. Emily wasn't who I thought she was. The woman I loved was a fraud, and the daughters I thought I lost were actually my father's. I stared at Mama Clara, a million questions swirling in my head. "So, Emily, the imposter, she killed my father's children? Why?" "She was cleaning house, Richard, covering her tracks. She knew the girls were a liability. They were a connection to your father, and to me." The sirens wailed closer. We were running out of time. But I had to know, where is he? Where's my father? Mama Clara looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and fear. "He's close, Richard. Closer than you think." Suddenly, the door to the room burst open. But it wasn't the men in suits. It was a woman. Young, maybe late 20s, with fiery red hair and eyes that burned with intensity. She held a gun in her hand, but it wasn't pointed at us. "Clara, we have to go, now!" she shouted, her voice urgent. Mama Clara's eyes widened in shock. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" The young woman, Sarah, ignored the question. She grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the door. "There's no time to explain. They know we're here. We have to get you to him." "To who? My father?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Sarah nodded, her face grim. "Yes, he's waiting for you." As we stumbled through the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Sarah seemed too eager, too intense. And why was Mama Clara so surprised to see her? We reached a back exit and burst out into the night. A black SUV was waiting, the engine running. Sarah shoved me into the back, then jumped in beside me. Mama Clara hesitated for a moment, then followed. As we sped away, I looked at Sarah, my eyes narrowed. "Who are you, really, and why are you helping us?" She looked at me, a strange smile playing on her lips. "I'm a friend, Richard, a friend of your father's." "But Mama Clara didn't seem to know you." Sarah's smile widened. Did she now? Suddenly, she reached into her jacket and pulled out a gun. She pointed it not at me, but at Mama Clara. "I'm sorry, Clara," she said, her voice cold and devoid of emotion. "But you know too much, and you've outlived your usefulness." Mama Clara gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Sarah, what are you doing? You can't do this." "Oh, but I can, Clara, and I will." She turned to me, her eyes gleaming with a chilling intensity. "You see, Richard, your father isn't waiting for you. He's waiting for me." And then she said the words that shattered everything I thought I knew. The words that turned the entire story on its head. "I'm his daughter, Richard, and I'm here to finish what he started." I'm his daughter, Richard, and I'm here to finish what he started. The world went silent, just the hum of the engine and the frantic thumping of my own heart. Mama Clara stared at Sarah, her face a canvas of disbelief. You're working with them?" Clara whispered, her voice cracking. Sarah just laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed in the confined space. "Working with them? Honey, I am them." She turned back to me, the gun still pointed at Clara. "You see, Richard, your father wasn't just hiding. He was planning. He had something they wanted, something powerful, and he entrusted it to the wrong person." "What are you talking about? What did he leave behind?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is that I'm here to claim it, and you, Richard, are going to help me." She reached into her purse with her free hand and pulled out a small, silver device. It looked like a key, but more intricate, more technological. "This," she said, holding it up, "is the key to everything. Your father hid it well, but he always had a soft spot for you. He knew you'd be drawn into this eventually." Clara lunged, a desperate, last-ditch effort to disarm Sarah. But Sarah was too quick. She fired. Clara slumped back against the seat, a crimson stain blooming on her chest. Her eyes met mine, a silent plea for forgiveness. "No," I shouted, my voice raw with grief and rage. Sarah ignored me. She turned her attention back to the device. "Now, Richard, tell me where it is. Where did your father hide the key?" I stared at her, my mind racing. I had no idea what she was talking about, but I couldn't let her get away with this. "I don't know anything," I yelled. Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me, Richard. It won't do you any good." She pressed the gun against my head. The cold metal sent a shiver down my spine. Tell me or I'll blow your brains out right here and now. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, the car swerved violently. We lurched to the side, tires screeching. Sarah lost her grip on the gun. It clattered to the floor. "What the hell was that?" Sarah yelled at the driver, who remained silent. Then the driver spoke. A voice I recognized. A voice that sent a jolt of electricity through my entire body. "Sorry for the bumpy ride, kids," the driver said, his voice raspy but unmistakable. "But I had to make a grand entrance." Sarah whirled around, her face contorted with fury. "Dad, what the hell are you doing?" My heart stopped. My father? He was the driver? He turned around, and for the first time in decades, I looked into my father's eyes. "Hello, Richard," he said, a sad smile on his face. "It's been a while, but something was wrong, terribly wrong." His eyes, they weren't the eyes of a loving father. They were cold, empty, and there was something else there, something dark and unsettling. Sarah stared at my father, bewildered. "Dad, what is the meaning of this? Why are you helping him?" He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Helping him? Oh, Sarah, you misunderstand. I'm not helping him. I'm using him." He turned to me, his eyes locking onto mine. "You see, Richard, Sarah isn't my daughter. She's just a pawn in my game. And you're the key." He reached into his coat and pulled out a gun. He pointed it not at Sarah, but at me. "I'm sorry, son," he said, his voice devoid of emotion, "but this is how it has to be." And then he said, "Your father, Richard. I'm your brother." My head swam. Brother? This wasn't just a twist. It was a freaking tornado tearing through my brain. Sarah was staring at him, mouth agape. Even she looked shocked. "Dad, what are you saying?" she stammered. He ignored her, his cold eyes fixed on me. "Your mother, well, let's just say she was a busy woman. Years ago, I was undercover, deep undercover. I met her, the real Emily. We had a connection. A fling. Then, I had to disappear, for reasons that don't matter right now. I never knew about you." He paused, a flicker of something that might have been regret crossing his face. "Years later, I saw your picture in the paper. Richard Sterling, Wall Street hotshot. It all clicked. I knew I had to get close to you, to protect you, and to use you." "Use me for what?" I managed to croak out, my voice barely audible. He smirked. "The key, Richard. Your mother knew where it was hidden. She was supposed to retrieve it for me. But then she disappeared. I sent Sarah to follow you, to get close, to find out what you knew." "But why the lies? Why all the deception?" Sarah screamed, tears streaming down her face. "Why make me think you were my father?" He shrugged. "A means to an end, sweetheart. You were useful, you were loyal, and you were expendable." He raised the gun higher, aiming directly at my chest. "Now, Richard, tell me where the key is. Don't make me kill you." My mind was a blank. Key? What freaking key? I didn't know anything about this. I was just a pawn. A stupid pawn in a game I didn't even understand. Suddenly, the car lurched again. But this time, it wasn't a swerve. It was a full-on collision. We slammed into something with a deafening crash. Airbags exploded. The world went white. When I came to, everything was a mess. The car was totaled, crumpled like a tin can. Sarah was unconscious, slumped against the dashboard. My brother was groaning, pinned behind the steering wheel. Mama Clara, she was gone. Then I saw it. Lying on the floor amidst the wreckage was a small, leather-bound book. It looked old, worn, like it had been through hell and back. I picked it up, my hands trembling. As I opened it, a photograph fell out. A picture of my mother, the real Emily. But behind her, barely visible, was another figure. A man. A man with cold, calculating eyes. A man who looked exactly like me. I flipped through the pages, my heart pounding. The book was a journal, filled with my mother's handwriting. And as I read, the truth hit me like a freight train. I wasn't Richard Sterling. Richard Sterling was my twin brother. And we weren't just brothers. We were clones. The journal revealed a horrifying truth. My mother was part of a top-secret government project, a project designed to create super soldiers. She had been artificially inseminated, not with my father's sperm, but with the DNA of a powerful, ruthless man. A man who wanted to control the world. Richard, the brother, in the car was the original Richard Sterling, the man who had made his fortune on Wall Street. I was the clone, the backup, the weapon, and the key? The key wasn't some physical object. It was me. It was in my blood, in my DNA, a code that could unlock unimaginable power. I looked down at the book, my hands shaking. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed, was a lie. I was a monster, created for a purpose I didn't even understand. And the real Richard Sterling, my twin, wanted to use me, to control me. Then I heard sirens. They were getting closer. I knew I had to run. But where could I go? Who could I trust? Suddenly, a voice echoed in my head. A voice I hadn't heard in years. A voice that was both familiar and terrifying. "Don't worry, son," it said. "I've been waiting for you." "Don't worry, son," it said. "I've been waiting for you." The sirens were screaming closer. Red and blue lights painted the wrecked car in sickening pulses. I had to get out, had to run, but my legs felt like lead. My head was spinning. Everything was wrong, twisted. My life, my family, everything I thought I knew was a lie. A carefully constructed, elaborate lie. I looked at the brother pinned behind the wheel. His eyes, still cold, were watching me. "Don't believe her, Richard," he croaked. "She's manipulating you, always has been." Her? Who the hell was he talking about? Then, the passenger door swung open. A figure stood silhouetted against the flashing lights. It was a woman, tall, lean, and terrifyingly familiar. "Get out of the car, Richard," she said. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "It's time you knew the truth." I stared at her, my mind struggling to make sense of what I was seeing. Where had I seen her before? Why did she feel so familiar? "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice barely a whisper. She smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Don't you recognize me, Richard? Look closer." She stepped into the light, and my world shattered. It was Emily, my Emily, the one who was supposed to be dead, the one who had supposedly murdered those little girls. But it couldn't be. It was impossible. I'd seen her die. I'd seen her lifeless body lying on the sidewalk. How is this possible?" I stammered. my mind reeling. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. It's a long story, Richard. A story that started long before you were even born. She stepped closer, reaching out to touch my face. Her touch was gentle, comforting, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I'm not who you think I am, Richard, she said. I'm not Emily. I'm her sister. Her twin sister. Twin sister? What the hell was going on? Emily and I were part of that project together, she continued. But we had different roles to play. She was the assassin, the manipulator. I was the protector, the one who was supposed to keep her in check. But why the lies? Why the charade? It was the only way to keep you safe, Richard. To keep you from finding out the truth about your father, about your brother, about yourself. But the girls, those innocent girls, why did she kill them? Her face clouded with pain. She didn't, Richard. I did. My breath caught in my throat. I stared at her, unable to comprehend what she was saying. I had to, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They were a threat. They knew too much. They were going to expose everything. She paused, her eyes filling with tears. I'm not proud of what I did, Richard. But I had to protect you. I had to protect the world from what you are. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out a gun. She pointed it not at me, but at my brother, pinned behind the wheel. It's over, Richard, she said, her voice hard and unwavering. Your reign of terror ends here. And before I could say anything, before I could stop her, she pulled the trigger. O tiro ecoou. Silêncio. Olhei para o meu irmão, morto. Emily, quer dizer, a irmã dela, me encarava. Que confusão. Quem era quem, no fim das contas? Por quê? A pergunta saiu rouca, quase inaudível. Ela suspirou. Ele ia te usar, Richard, para dominar o mundo. Eu não podia deixar. Dominação era tudo tão grande, tão absurdo. Eu só queria uma vida normal. E agora? Ela olhou ao redor. Sirenes. Luzes. O caos. Agora a gente some. Pra onde? Ela sorriu, um sorriso triste, mas cheio de determinação. Para um lugar onde ninguém nos encontre. Onde a gente possa finalmente ser quem a gente quiser. Pegamos a estrada. Sem rumo, sem plano. Só a gente e a verdade. Ou parte dela. Porque no fundo, eu sabia que ainda tinha muita coisa que eu não sabia. Que tinha mais peças nesse quebra-cabeça maluco. Anos se passaram. A gente viveu escondido, mudando de nome e de cidade. Tentando recomeçar. Mas o passado sempre voltava para assombrar. Em sonhos, em flashes de memória, em sussurros na noite. Uma noite, Emily, quer dizer, a irmã dela, me contou uma coisa que eu nunca vou esquecer. Que o projeto que criou a gente não foi desativado. Que ainda existem outros como a gente por aí, espalhados pelo mundo, esperando para serem ativados. E o pior de tudo, ela não sabia quem eram, nem onde estavam, nem quando iam despertar. A gente vive em paz, por enquanto, mas a sombra da dúvida paira sobre nós. A qualquer momento a sirene pode tocar de novo. E a gente vai ter que correr. De novo. A pergunta que não me deixa dormir é: será que a gente vai conseguir fugir para sempre? Ou o nosso destino já está traçado? Alerta máximo, família. Se você chegou até aqui, é porque faz parte da elite que acompanha as histórias mais insanas desse canal. E você não vai me deixar na mão, né? Então escuta aqui. Se inscreva agora. Você precisa fazer isso agora. Não seja um mero espectador. Junte-se à nossa comunidade de verdadeiros fãs. As próximas histórias serão ainda mais explosivas, e você não pode perder nada. Esmague o like agora mesmo. Mostre para o YouTube que você é um apaixonado por esse conteúdo. É a sua chance de alimentar o algoritmo e garantir que o canal continue bombando. Inunde os comentários com suas teorias. Qual a sua opinião sobre esse final inesperado? Quem são os outros clones? O que vai acontecer com Richard e Emily? Eu quero saber tudo. Compartilhe imediatamente com 5 amigos. Marque todo mundo que precisa conhecer esse desfecho. Espalhe a palavra. Vamos mostrar a força da nossa comunidade. Não espere nem mais um segundo. Apenas os verdadeiros fãs demonstram seu apoio com essas ações. Este é o momento. Vamos juntos.